Pancake Sailor is a game about, you guessed it, sailing. You take your little 1 to 2 man boat out on the water and do some sailing, either in a free sailing mode to explore or in a race. Now, I have actually sailed before, and in a boat very similar to the one depicted in the game, so I have a little bit of background knowledge about this kind of thing. It's been a few years since I put those skills to the test, but I still remember the theory behind it. The boat is designed fairly simplistically, but has a few key features. The rudder, the centreboard, the sail with its rope, and a compass on the right hand side. The blue arrow around the edge of the compass denotes the wind direction, i.e. from the north in this game, and has a red zone marked on it for where your speed will drop. It also has a little screen on the right showing your speed, so you can adjust the sail accordingly. You use W and S to push the sail out and pull it in, use A and D to push the rudder, but the turn is opposite, so if you press D and push the rudder right, the boat will turn left. Otherwise, you have the number keys, which basically give you a lot of different photogenic angles of the boat. I think the only useful camera angles I found were 5, which was a seated view at the back of the boat, 8, which was my chosen angle for most of it and was a view seated from the front of the boat, and 3, which gave a bird's eye perspective and allowed me to spot this randomly hovering whale-shaped shadow out on the horizon. The game explains these controls to you via a pop-up, and there's also a narrator voice in-game to warn you about going out of bounds and giving you hints if you're facing into the wind or if your sail is in a dodgy position. I played the free play mode first because that's what the game advised me to do, and I have to admit the scenery is really well designed. It's a visually appealing game for sure, even if the boat itself is pretty simple, and the sound effects are spot on. As I was travelling around, I assessed the accuracy of the sail mechanics, and I admit they were pretty good, if a little flexible. I won't bore with the details, but the general theory is that if you're facing into the wind, you want the boat sail pulled in tight, and if the wind is in your 6, you want the sail out wide, and that was what worked in the game. They also incorporated some tilt into the boat as well, which, again, accurate. Though you don't quite get the same experience with having to duck when the sail switches sides so the boom doesn't give you a concussion when it swings past. I reached the randomly hovering whale and, well, it was just a whale, which was a little underwhelming sadly. I also tested if you could land the boat by steaming at an island as fast as possible, and you can't land the boat. You can, however, clip into the sand. Maybe some more collision would be needed to stop overlap, but it's really not too much of an issue. At least you don't get stuck on the sand. The next option for play mode was an easy time trial, which I had a go at. First try I got confused, thinking the stars were paired and I had to weave through them like gates, but I realised a few stars in that was borderline impossible. The stars deduct a few seconds from your time, and you yourself have to make sure you're sailing as fast as possible, and those two things combined will cut down your time. The game taunts you with the top 5 leaderboard at the end, so that you can immediately see how bad you are. The track is pretty easy to see though, and the first try the race took me about 80 seconds, but my second attempt cut that down to 50. I had a few goes to try and skim my time down, but I was getting thrown off pace by the gusts of wind, since they up your speed but lower your control. So to get the stars, you can't make full use of the boost unless you're a pro. Also, it was hard to check the wind dial whilst I was trying to concentrate on where I was going. There was one more mode after that, which is the multiplayer mode, and as you can imagine it was dead. I'm not sure if it's online, I think you have to invite friends. It's the same as the free play mode, but there are apparently boxes that you have to compete to find. You can play the multiplayer mode with people who own the VR version of the game, called VR Regatta, which costs about £10 on Steam. I wanted to try the quick race and the long race too, but those options were available on the second page on the Windy Islands, and the Windy Islands are unfortunately hidden behind a paywall. It was about £4 to pay for the second part, which would unlock you a new map for free play, and 2 more race modes. But I'm a free-to-player, so I'm restricted to the free play, the online, and the one easy race. From that you can see the game doesn't win many points on content from the free-to-play perspective. That also shoots an arrow into its replayability potential as you're restricted to one map and one race, which you could spend some time trying to cut your time down on, but it will get samey eventually. The map for free play is pretty big, so you do have space to explore, but you can't really interact with anything and it's more use for learning the boat controls than anything else. Unless you just wanted to listen to some water noises and sail a boat as a stress-free break from life. If there was a feature such as changing the weather or wind direction or speed, something like that, it might add a bit more, but you're just stuck with the standard calm weather otherwise. It looks and sounds good, the controls are accurate, but sadly the game doesn't have too much to offer for content, and that's really what holds it back the most, unless you're willing to pay money. I got about 40 minutes playtime out of it, with time in free play and several attempts at the easy race, so I'd say you could probably get a decent hour out of it, maybe more if you are just in it for the scenery. I'll give Pancake Sailor a 6.5 out of 10.